You catch in the waiting room?
Yeah, and I hope you all don't mind. We're going to record this so that we can put it up online for the other, people on your block and people interested.
Yeah. Just a quick raise of hands. How many of you are block leaders? Excellent. And how many of you are on a team?
Am I on a team?
Yeah, Judy, you'd be considered a teammate.
Okay, good.
Yep. Excellent. And anyone here who is on neither, but just heard about it through the newsletter?
Raise our hand, but we're not on video.
That would be me.
Excellent. Excellent. Randall, is that Bo? It says,
Yeah, Bo keeps me, yep, he's keeping me informed. You
excellent.
got it. Thanks.
Excellent. Well, you guys, welcome to tonight. This is our new, we're reformulating these Wednesday night virtual happy hours and having a speaker series coming to these now. And so do know that we plan to open these up as we do these every week. We'll open them up so that you can invite your teammates and your neighbors and your friends, because the whole point is that we have people learning about all of the amazing resources we have in our community. And it's a really great opportunity for you to learn more about the Cool Block program. If you're not currently a block leader or on a team, know that you can stay on afterwards. We can answer a few questions for you if you have any. But in the meantime, we didn't really discuss, shall I introduce Xinci? Anna, do you mind if I go ahead and Xinci Tan is, I'm going to just pass it over to you and let you explain who you are and what you're going to be talking about this evening. Thank you for coming tonight.
Yes, no problem. Sure. Yes, so I'm Xinci and I work for Zero Waste Sonoma. And actually, I do have a couple of slides that explain who we are. So if there's no objections, I'll just dive right in. Okay.
Sounds great. Let's go for it.
Okay, let me see. Oops. Okay, oops, I'm sorry. Can you see this okay?
Yep.
All right, so yeah, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about some tips and tricks for just getting to zero waste and what that means, as well as a law that is newly effective starting this year called SB 1383, which some of you might have heard about. So yeah, so who are we? So I work for Zero Waste Sonoma, as I mentioned, and we are a regional government agency, what's called a Joint Powers Authority, or a JPA, and we represent and serve the 10 member jurisdictions of Sonoma County. So that includes all the cities, the town of Windsor, as well as the unincorporated county of Sonoma. So we are tasked with waste management issues, and that's kind of a broad term, but really what that means is that we manage certain programs and functions for the county, all 10 jurisdictions. And this includes, recycling and waste reduction, that might be education and policy, household hazardous waste, education and outreach, as well as our organics and composting. So I'm specifically the organics program manager. So the last bullet is my forte, I guess. And I just love this picture on the right of this truck headed to the landfill. I don't think it's, I'm not actually sure where this picture came from. It was in our folders, but it just shows that we have such a throwaway culture that people, throw everything into the landfill, and it's not a sustainable solution, as you all know. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the work that our agency has done. So a lot of our work does revolve around policy, and that includes local ordinances and resolutions, as well as more regional or state policy. The ones that are more local, you might be familiar with. So in 2014, we were the ones that passed the countywide single-use plastic bag ban that technically doesn't allow grocery stores from using single-use or offering single-use plastic bags. And they have to charge for paper bags but people can bring in their reusable bags. The only thing with this ban since 2014 that we've realized is that there is a very glaring loophole that a lot of grocery stores use, and in the ban, it says that reusable bags are acceptable. And so a lot of these grocery stores have started selling these thicker plastic bags and just claiming that they're reusable. So anyway, that's an unfortunate thing, but the overall, I think, intent of that ban was very widely accepted, which is really nice, and I think has really encouraged people to bring their own bags. So in 2018, we also pushed a zero waste resolution that all 10 jurisdictions accepted. And in 2021 was when we started disseminating information about a disposable foodware ordinance and a styrofoam ban. And so the image on the right is a summary of that ordinance where...
Locked up and put the key back. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that for me? Okay. So yeah, so the ordinance really pushes reusables, and this is for commercial restaurants, like food facilities, I should emphasize. So really pushes reusables as being the best option, especially for dine-in. Like there's no reason to not use reusables. But then if they do give customers disposable foodware like plates and utensils, then recyclable and locally compostable options are great. And then polystyrene foam is all banned. So as of right now, all 10 jurisdictions have passed the ordinance or are, yeah, they've passed the ordinance, but maybe a few of them are not quite effective. So if you do see styrofoam when you're eating out, we do have a complaint form on our website. I realize I didn't put the link in here, but I'll put it in the chat later. Okay. We also have, like I said, household hazardous waste programs, in case you're not familiar. At the central landfill, there is a permanent facility just for household hazardous waste right when you go in, and it's on your right. And it's free for residents. There is a cost for businesses. We do also have events every Tuesday around the county for collecting HHW. And we have a pickup service that I believe it's $50 per pickup unless you're 70 years or older by appointment. We have e-waste events. We have also a reuse locker at the permanent facility down in Meacham Road, where you can get, you know, say like if somebody had pesticides that they had, the bottle was mostly full, they could put it in there and somebody else can grab it. So that's a really underutilized resource, and free paint in 4 colors. Those are not, I don't think those colors are quite accurate, but it is recycled paint that is just free. So just so you know. A couple other things, we have our website, that's mainly where our hub of information is. And we do come out with the zero waste guides. These covers are old. We just came out with a new one that we're starting to distribute now. And we do have a helpline called the Eco Desk. Down in the bottom, you'll see that number for both English and Spanish. And also, like I mentioned, we have a lot of Spanish outreach. A lot of it is through our contractor, Hugo, who's pictured here in the pictures. And he has a lot of connections with the radio industry, which is great. And kind of an example of my programs, at this time, we don't have composting workshops, but we had a long-standing contract with the UCCE to provide these home composting workshops, and we do a lot of education just promoting composting and just the use of compost in general. So the brochures on the left are available on our website for both backyard composting and worm composting, in case you're interested. Okay, I'll talk a little bit about SB 1383 now. So for those of you who don't know, the state law was passed back in, or signed into law by the governor back in 2016, and it was because of climate change. And as you know, California experiences a lot of different unfortunate effects from climate change, including, flooding, fire, and drought. And tackling organics, or what they call organics, like food, paper, anything that's, basically carbon based, and getting that out of the landfill is low-hanging fruit to tackle the amount of methane emissions that are coming from landfills and to really reduce the human impacts of climate change, or our cause of climate change rather. Also, there's a lot of food insecurity in California, and so all those things together is why the state decided to pass this law. So in short, it's a very comprehensive law, a lot of different moving parts, but in short, the statewide goals for this law is that there is a 75% reduction in the amount of organic material in landfills by 2025, with 2014 being the baseline, and then a 20% increase of recovery of edible food by 2025. And when I say recovery of edible food, some people get confused what that means. That second requirement is geared towards big restaurants, like grocery stores, really big businesses that maybe have a lot of excess food that instead of having that food be thrown into the garbage and end up in the landfill, they have to now recover that food or donate that food to a nonprofit so it can feed somebody who might need it. And we're not talking about like plate scrapings or anything like that. We're talking about still packaged food, still safe to eat, unopened. And that can be, like whole produce, or it can be like from the deli, like sandwiches, just making sure that food doesn't go to waste. And then the main requirements for residents and businesses, all residents and businesses are required now to separate their food scraps and yard debris from the garbage and put it into their green bin to send for composting. And then, like I mentioned, the large food generating businesses are required to donate food to feed people, their excess food to feed people. Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit more, and this is like more of the fun part of the presentation, I think. So what is zero waste? A lot of people get very intimidated when we talk about zero waste, but it's not really about getting to zero. It's really a lifestyle change, and it's a commitment as you go about your daily lives to just be more mindful of what you're buying, what you're doing, and just try to conserve resources, right? To have your footprint be as small as possible. And in the industry, what we talk about really is that we're not really trying to get to zero. It's actually more of like, if we can get 90% of what we're throwing into the landfill now out of the landfill and be reused or recycled somehow, that would be great, because we recognize that there are certain things that can really never be like recycled, like diapers, for example. Is just, there's no way, like they have to be landfilled. And so it's really, like I said, a mindset. I do want to talk a little bit about the produce exchange program. If you haven't heard about it, there's been an ongoing produce exchange program that's in Sebastopol that we're trying to see if other cities, maybe like Petaluma, would be interested in having programs within the city. And the whole idea is just, it's a very informal process of gardeners swapping produce, seeds, and plant starts. The one in Sebastopol takes place at the Grange, and it's, I believe, twice a month that they have this. And people just bring what they can, or if they don't have anything to bring, they can just go and take produce. And then any excess is donated to a food pantry. So it's a really great program, and we can certainly talk more about this if any of you are interested in maybe starting something up if you're part of a community garden. And I just wanted to share a few zero waste tips. Maybe some of these are already familiar to some of you, but I really encourage people to shop in the bulk section or from refill stores. Now in Sonoma County, I think we have, I want to say 5 refill stores, and the link is on this slide to those refill stores. They just popped up like in the last 2 or 3 years, which is great. I always recommend people keep a Tupperware and utensils set in their car. Like when you go out to eat, you often have leftovers, and instead of taking their to-go container, you can put it in your Tupperware. And the other big thing is giving gifts of experience. So obviously a lot of people give gifts to show their affection, right? Especially during Christmas. And instead of, always buying things, you could also try to think of maybe concert tickets, or like tickets to a baseball game, or going to an escape room together. So gifts of experience are a great way to cut down on waste, especially on things that might not last, or someone might not use very much after they receive it. And then the last thing I'll mention is bring your own plate parties. So I'm a big fan of potlucks. And I usually provide all the reusable like utensils and plates and things, but if that's too much, one great way to do it is asking all your guests to bring their own plate and their own utensil. And then, they can just take that home and wash it themselves. And it does, maybe it's a bit uncomfortable to start that conversation, but usually, it goes down really well. Like, it's very rewarding to know that you don't have the waste of like disposable plates and utensils. So that's just a suggestion. Another thing I'll mention is creative cooking. So I cook a lot. I don't know about all of you, but one great resource I found is IKEA, of all companies, release what they call the Scraps book, and it's free. It's a PDF. And it's this giant tome of recipes that make use of food scraps that you might even think like, oh, I'm not going to eat this, but they can actually be repurposed. So some examples are carrot top pesto, or banana peel bacon, which is really interesting, or just ideas of like getting, like, if you have a bunch of leftovers in your fridge and you don't know what to do with it, just all these like very malleable recipes that you can be very flexible with the ingredients. We do have a lifestyle page on the Zero Waste Sonoma webpage that has more tips on reducing food loss. And then I also love this Save the Food campaign that has a lot of these creative recipes too. And I'll stop there. I know that was a lot of information, but happy to take questions. And this is my contact information if anyone wants to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great, and very well said and easy to follow, I think. And I see we have some questions in the chat that I thought we could maybe answer. And so if we just start at the top, George asked, where do we bring used smoke detectors?
Yeah, smoke detectors are really unfortunate. So unfortunately, with smoke detectors, I want to say, first of all, they do have a small radioactive component to them. So don't try to open them, because I have known people who tried to open them and tried to like recycle the plastic separately from, other stuff. Don't do that. The only recycling program I know of for smoke detectors is a mail-in service. I can post that link in the chat once I find it. But that's the only way that I know that they can be recycled. You do have to pay for it, which is a bit of a bummer. But otherwise, the radioactive element is small, so it is okay to put in the trash. Oh, take out the batteries first. I'm sorry.
Okay, good.
Recycle those batteries.
Is there, so a couple of us were asking about, like, is it possible to get reused lockers in town? Does anybody do that, where instead of having to drive out to Meacham, is any other city in Sonoma County doing something more locally for reused lockers?
Oh, that's a good question. So the only thing is that because these chemicals are considered household hazardous waste, the reuse lockers are only for chemicals. You did mention pesticides. I was wondering why that was your example. Okay. Yes.
So,
yes. So
I think people were thinking more things like art supplies, and I guess more like Recycle Town.
Right. Yeah. So there are a lot of those, thrift stores have a lot of those items, right? And craft supply stores, I'm sure there are some reuse stores. I don't know actually like specifically, but the one that I was talking about in my presentation was specifically for household hazardous waste.
Got
And
it.
so that one is unfortunately limited to the Matron Road site because household hazardous waste, if you have so much like in that locker, it requires a special permit. And so that's why it's kind of limited to that location.
Great. And then Annie, I was hoping maybe you could just pipe in for a second about what 350 is doing for the, I know that 350 is working on potential food sharing, like was mentioned in the presentation. Annie, are you there?
I think she's muted.
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah. We're in the process. The team of us at 350 are in the process of putting together a plan, and we're hoping to launch it by the Zero Waste Week at the end of July.
Yeah.
And we may expand it beyond produce to other goods as well. And then we have another component to that we're exploring and trying to working out some of those details down and putting down a location for it. So I put my email address in the chat if anybody wants more information, wants to get involved with that. Eileen, I don't know if you want to say anything more. Eileen is part of the 350 team that's working on that. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Only that we find the Cool Cities and Cool Petaluma a great resource for outreach, and we'll be reaching out to the Cool Petaluma people to kind of get some energy around it, because we really feel that this is a great way to network with people in Petaluma.
Yeah, you will definitely be hearing, we will definitely add that to our newsletters and our outreach because we're excited.
Fabulous.
About doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
And then Gail asks, this is a common question. Many takeout containers are brown paper cardboard boxes with a shiny lining. The shiny lining makes them ineligible for ecology compost, so they must go to landfill. Can they be banned too?
Yeah, so those are so tricky. So technically they're not allowed under the ordinance.
Oh, really?
And yes, but I need to check again because we do have a few exemptions with the ordinance. So at this time, we could have a whole conversation about compostable plastics, but I won't get into it. The bottom line is that compostable plastic products, including any sort of disposable foodware with that compostable lining, is not accepted at the compost facilities. But the problem is with a lot of hot food, there are not many alternatives out there for restaurants to buy. Because, when you think about it, if there is no lining, then the liquid soaks through and then it kind of gets all gross once the person gets home. And so we do have a few exemptions in the ordinance, and that might be one of them, but I'm not completely remembering if that is or not. So, yeah. So I guess the question, does that answer the question?
So it's yes, I know it's tricky because it's like the chicken and the egg. Like we want to get rid of things, but we also, which creates the market for something new, but we need the market for the new thing to catch on, or for us to all start bringing our own containers for takeout, and then that problem is solved. I know that like at Petaluma Market, if you have your own container, you can get the quote unquote tear weight at the cash register for like if you want to get salad or something from the hot bar, and then they'll know how much that weighs. You just put it on there as a sticker, and then you can just use that instead of that's like those paper lined trays are all over that, the food area there. Let's see if there's anything else in here. I had a question about how is that going with compliance for the food reuse, the not wasting food from restaurants and grocery stores and stuff? Are people actually finding ways to put that food to good use, or is it more theory than
so
at this point?
I would say that is probably the most challenging part of the law at this time, at least in my opinion. It is just because there is no other law in the US that requires food recovery from businesses. And so everyone is still trying to figure this out. And part of the problem is that predominantly the organizations that work in food recovery, that accept and distribute the food items to people who need it, are mostly nonprofit. And there are a lot of them very much at their capacity in terms of like staff or funding. And now with this law, they are expecting a big increase in the amount of food that has to be recovered and distributed to people. And so the responsibility of expanding food recovery capacity falls onto the jurisdictions. And that's something that I'm working on currently. And unfortunately, that means funding capacity, right? Like you need to be buying like fridges or trucks and, you know, funding people. And so that is definitely a chicken and egg situation where these businesses, like, they know they're required to do this now, but they might not have the outlets to actually recover the food. So we're doing what we can right now. All the businesses that are affected and are required to do so know about the requirements. But this will be, I think, a years-long effort in order to get the whole program up and running.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I figured. And I saw that Nora says that they're doing their Cool Block neighborhood party in mid-July, and they're asking people to bring their own plates and cups and utensils. And yay, Nora. And I think it's a great way to start to change the culture. We did that at my daughter's elementary school, and it seemed kind of crazy. At first we had this like ice cream social, and we were trying to figure out like what bowl to use. And then somebody just said, just tell people to bring a bowl. And I was like, duh, of course. That makes so much sense. That we just ask people to bring a bowl and a spoon. And at first it like is a little bit awkward, but then people get into it. And then hopefully it translates to other places in their life too, where it becomes like the new norm.
They end up using their water bottles and whatever else they can figure out, because anyone will do everything for ice cream.
Exactly. Well, and it becomes like one of those social things where like you're the only one who didn't bring a bowl or a plate, you know, suddenly you get a little positive social pressure. Azaya asks, do they do any partner work with apartment complex in the realm of neighborhood gardens?
Who was the they in the sentence?
Do you want to ask the question again, or do you want? I'm guessing you Zero Waste. Yes.
Okay. You mean for SB 1383 or?
I don't think that there are any resources for neighborhood gardens. I mean, there certainly is the compost program like the city of Petaluma does. We have the big green bins. Got it.
Is it okay if I just talk?
Yes, please. That might make it easier. Thank you. There you are.
We have the big green bin out where like the big recycling bin is that all the trash winds up in, but we're in like a 400 unit plus apartment complex. So as far as people like actually diverting their food waste, there's no like receptacle for them to do that because we pay into valet trash. So we have a little bin right outside of our door, but our entire trash just goes there. So I'm curious, like, because we have 10 garden beds, 10 raised beds that get raffled off yearly to the residents. I'd like to approach management about like expanding that, but I'm curious if you guys would be interested in partnering as far as like sourcing like the wood or the soil or the materials perhaps.
Yeah, that's I think I understand your question a bit more. So I feel like I'll address two things. So apartment buildings are now required under the law to have and provide the green bin service to their residents so that they can send their food scraps and yard debris for composting. So I will say apartment complexes are really challenging. Like I live in an apartment complex and my manager is really dragging their feet with with this whole composting thing. I mean, we have the bins, but it's like they need to be rolling the carts out to the street and they're not doing that. So anyway, if you can let me know by email, maybe that apartment complex, I could follow up with the management on that. The other question that you're asking, yes, we do actually have free compost. So if you are interested, we are doing a compost giveaway in July as part of Zero Waste Week, but I've been this year especially trying to get more free compost out there in the form of like compost giveaways. So I don't know if any of you have heard, but we've had like a lot of compost giveaways in Sebastopol and Santa Rosa and Windsor. I haven't had a lot of luck in Petaluma because just finding a site is kind of difficult. So any of you have suggestions for a site, I could maybe try to organize one in Petaluma. But yeah, let me find the compost giveaway page.
That's a great idea. I'm sure, I mean, I'll talk to you offline. I'm sure we could, you know, if you give us the parameters of what you need for a site, I think that we would love to be included in that compost giveaway.
Yes.
So would you go pick up the compost yourself or do they bring it to you?
Yeah, so with this compost giveaway, once we have a site, then we have the truck delivered there and then residents are asked to come and pick up the compost.
Okay.
Yeah, so the thing is, with this compost, because it is paid for by public funds, we have to like make it available for everyone. So it can't really like benefit. I don't know. I'll have to talk to my.
Oh yeah.
supervisor.
It would be public open for sure.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. No, I guess I was more talking about it might be possible for me to have a delivery of compost straight to the apartment complex, but that might not go over so well because it's like only benefiting that one apartment.
Got it.
Yeah, but there's 400 units. That's a lot of units.
Yeah. So let me talk to my supervisor and we might be able to get something set up. Yeah.
And somebody suggested Petaluma Bounty might be a good site.
I did talk to Petaluma Bounty and I did get them some compost. They were giving out compost during their plant sale this spring, but they limited it to 10 gallons, which isn't very much. And so I am coordinating with them to have another giveaway in the fall, but I think they're going to be limiting the compost again. Whereas a lot of the other events that I've been coordinating around the county, it's more like people can take up to 2 cubic yards, or I'm sorry, half a cubic yard, which is a lot more. It's like a truck bed.
Great. Okay. We'll work on that. And then, Annie sent out a reminder that Sonoma Family Meal, who's another community partner of Cool Petaluma, is going to be doing cooking classes on food waste in July. And I'm going to make sure I get that in our newsletter. Thanks for that reminder, Annie. It seems so far away before. Amazing how the months slide by. But they have an actual commercial kitchen that they're going to be doing demonstrations in. So it's going to be fun, hands-on stuff too as well.
That's great. And I realized I didn't talk about Zero Waste Week. Are you all familiar with Zero Waste Week or no? Okay, so we are doing our first ever Zero Waste Week this year, and it is a week of events. The end of July is last week in July. It's a week of events that just promote like reuse and zero waste and like community partners and just like cool events. So we invite you to join us. I just posted the link of for the events on the chat. We're still finalizing some of these events, but a lot of them are, I think, listed on the website. So.
Fantastic. I think we actually covered a lot. Are there any other questions? We can wrap up this portion and, like Deb said, move on to other, cool bot questions, etc., and stop the recording now if we think this is a good spot. Last call for questions. Did everybody learn something? Deb, anything else?
Just want to say thank you, Xinci. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, thank you. That was great.
Yeah. Oh, I do see one last question.
Yep, go for it.
Plastic bricking. Can you clarify what that is? I don't think I'm familiar.
I've seen circulating online videos of people taking inorganic recyclable waste and like packing it into bottles so that they're so like compact, they're almost like a brick. And people will make things with these bricks like on their own and whatnot, but hypothetically doing that and putting them in the recycling system that way makes them easier to like compress for reuse. And I'm just curious if there's any validity to that, or if it's just some hyped up thing online.
Oh, are you talking about like they'll stuff things in a plastic bottle and then put it in the blue bin, or they're
Yes.
they are?
Yeah.
Okay. No.
Okay.
So
I didn't think so. I just wanted to check.
yeah, so the reason is the recycling facilities are what we call the material recovery facility. When they take the material from your blue bin and they run it through the facility, there are machinery that sort things based on their weight, shape, and size. And plastic bottles should be light, and so they kind of like travel up on the conveyor belt. So if you stuff a lot of things in the plastic bottle, like a lot of plastic, for example, it might be heavier, and so it might not work according to how they expect the plastic bottle to work in the facility, if that makes sense. So we always
That totally
suggest
makes
that,
sense.
yeah, with plastic bottles, don't fill them. I mean, if you have like, for example, I don't know, I can't think of anything that you would like want to put in a plastic bottle to recycle. So I'd suggest no.
And Xinci, isn't it true to watching the Story of Plastic documentary, which I highly recommend? It was shown last year at the Zero Waste event at Soma Village. Isn't it true too that all the plastics are like actually different kinds of plastics and need to be recycled separately? So if you shove a plastic bag inside of a plastic bottle, it's actually not the same plastic and it can't just melt down together.
Yes, that's a great point. So like the numbers that you see on the bottom of like plastic products within the chasing arrow symbol, that is what is called a resin code. And so those are categories of plastic with different melting points. And so in the facility, when they're sorting everything, more highly advanced facilities use lasers to determine like which plastics are which, and then they get sorted appropriately. So yes, if you do like stuff different plastics in a bottle, they might not all be the same kind of plastic, and that might be a bit harmful as well. Yeah.
So here's an example. You wanted to know if what you might put in a bottle, or in my case, a yogurt container. I have some prescription eye drops that come sadly in those individual hard plastic droppers. So I generate 2 of those a day.
Gotcha.
And it seems like high quality plastic, and they're too small to be put in the recycling bin. So, you know, I think like with a lot of medical stuff, I guess it just goes to the landfill from what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think medical waste is particularly challenging just because, you know, there's always that need of sterilization, right, in human health. So
Well, this doesn't touch anything. It's just an eye drop.
right,
And I empty out the medicine into the garbage can, and then I just put the empty hard plastic in a yogurt container.
Right. So I guess what I mean more is like, I always think of like gloves and masks. Now that we're in a pandemic, we just have a lot of that waste that we can't really get rid of or recycle. But with your eye drops, I mean, I know you mean well, but I would actually still suggest throwing them in the trash, just because we don't know what kind of plastic that is. And, you know, going back to the resin codes, and they're different melting points. So it's really hard to say what that kind of plastic is. Unfortunately, I wouldn't suggest recycling them.
Okay, I won't do it.
Yeah.
The landfill it is.
Yeah, it's really sad. There's just some things that can't be recycled.
Xinci, one last thing, just because I see this commonly in the wrong bin at our office, the ubiquitous coffee cup,
Mm.
take out coffee cup. Where does that go?
That is unfortunately trash because coffee cups, if you think about it, it's a hot cup, right? So they have to have a plastic lining in there. Otherwise, the hot coffee will go all over your hand. And so the way that that cup is manufactured, the plastic is melded into the paper. And there isn't really an easy way to remove that, to separate the plastic from the paper. So that's why it has to go into the trash. But yes, I do see that in the recycling a lot.
What do you guys call
Just
it?
a quick question,
Recycling.
Natasha. What happens to the medications that we take to the police station to recycle? What do they do with those and the bottles?
Yeah, so those medications are actually, they're not recycled, they are disposed of. So usually they are incinerated in a controlled facility. And the reason why we don't want people throwing that in the trash is more for like controlled substances. You don't want people like digging through your trash to get those prescription medications, or flushing them down the toilet, because once it dissolves, it's in your water, right? So that's why they have to be specially disposed of, but they're not recycled. The bottles, I believe they do recycle.
Any last questions? I feel like the more questions we ask, the more questions we'll have, but that might be a good place to stop. Thank you so much, Xinci. Thank you, Annie, for helping us organize. Thanks, Deb, for getting this all started. And anybody who wants to stay on, like Deb said, and ask questions about Cool Block or have any other questions, we can stay on. And I'm gonna stop the recording now. But thank you. And don't forget to check out Zero Waste Week at the end of July. We'll be posting info about that as well.